It's great. It's great. It's kind of, it has its own endearing charm as opposed to like
Yes.
bumping music, It's
Oh
just
yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, I'm recording the little message. We were just discussing off camera about how refreshing it is that my videos don't have any sort of major lead-in music, that kind of thing. Although my last video did, because my a former student of mine, Jason Bach, who teaches, he's actually I've interviewed him on here. His wife Rachel Bach does does video editing,
oh,
and
nice.
she edited my last video because there were so many internet glitches, and then she added a little video at the very beginning of it, and it was
Oh,
great. So for those wondering what the heck did Chap learn how to do, did he learn how to put a little promo on? No, I didn't. And Rachel did that. So shout out to Rachel. But anyway, my guest today, Father John Eckert. And many of you, I don't know, probably don't know Father John Eckert, but Father John has been a reader of my blog, and we got to know each other through that. And then we've had a series of absolutely wonderful phone conversations that go on for like an hour and a half that are just great. And I love talking to this guy. And so I didn't have time. I was so busy on the farm today, I didn't have time to print out like a bio for him. So I'm going to have Father John introduce himself to my viewers. So go ahead, Father John Eckert. Tell my viewers, who are you? Where are you originally from? What's your background? Where are you a priest? Where did you get educated? That kind of stuff.
sure. So we'll start off, yeah. So I'm a priest for 12 years now. I just hit the 12-year anniversary this past Sunday, so June 5th, 2010. I am a priest for the Diocese of Charlotte, North Carolina. I did not grow up here, though. I grew up in central Illinois in Peoria, so Fulton Sheen territory.
Oh yeah.
It's a great place to grow up. Still have siblings there. I'm the oldest of four kids. I ended up in this area because when I was in second pre-theology studying for the Diocese of Peoria, my dad was looking at a job transfer down here in Charlotte. And at the time, Peoria had like 45 seminary and Charlotte had like 12. Just all sorts of things I had heard and just the way things kind of move. I came down to visit the diocese and fell in love with it, and my folks ended up down here, and I've been here in the diocese since 2006. Let's see, undergrad. I went to St. Louis University for my undergraduate degree, studied political science and communication. Thought about priesthood basically since I was a little guy. One of the it's one of those stories. It's kind of like of legend. I assume that it happened, but my mom likes to tell the story. When I was 3-year-old preschool, a little girl came up to me and said, "Johnny Eckert, I'm going to kiss you." And I said, "No, no, I'm going to be a priest." And so like it was always kind of there. But then end of high school, visiting seminaries, just seminary kind of freaked me out. But so it was like, well, I'm not going to be a priest. I guess I'll be a politician. And so I studied political science at St. Louis University. But after 4 years of that, it was clear I had to give seminary a shot, and went to the Josephinum in Columbus, Ohio, and was blessed that even though I switched dioceses in the midst, I got to stay at the Josephinum all 6 years. Met some of my very best friends, priests all over the country, in particular Fort Wayne, South Bend, and Phoenix, and a few other places. Just wonderful guys, and of course my priest brothers here in Charlotte. And I'm in my third assignment. I was 2 years a parochial vicar in Greensboro, so kind of like in the heart of ACC country. Although I grew up, like I said, Central Illinois, so I was a Missouri Valley Conference fan, which is hard for the ACC people to understand, like why I don't get all excited about Duke in North Carolina. I like Bradley University, but
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it down here. Was 2 years a pastor in a small parish in the mountains, St. John the Baptist in Tryon, and now I'm in my 8th year at Sacred Heart Parish in Salisbury, North Carolina. About 1,000 families. We have a wonderful school. Like a lot of parishes down here, we're about 50% English speaking, 50% Spanish speaking. It's always active. There's a lot going on, so it's great.
So you speak Spanish?
Un poquito. So it's one of those things I've had to learn on the job, and I think that's probably pretty common for a lot of guys right about my ordination year. I mean, I had some good Spanish studies in seminary. I got sent to Mexico for 6 weeks when I was a deacon. That was great. It was a wonderful experience. Really picked up the culture and appreciation for especially Mexican Catholic history and the persecution of the church in the last century. But I didn't learn a lot of Spanish. We were set up in a little convent out in the country with a lot of other seminarians, and I mean we took classes and then we were bussed back out. So it was like we were sort of in our own little.
See, I when I was a seminarian, I spent a year in the Dominican Republic learning Spanish,
Nice.
and we were deliberately sent to live with families that were not English speakers.
Yeah.
So we were. It was a baptism of fire, and I learned a lot of Spanish. I was fluent in Spanish at the end of that year, and I am no longer fluent in Spanish because I didn't use it subsequent to that, really. But
Understand. Yeah,
that's
being on the
great.
ground in the parish helps. I mean, I have mass in Spanish every Sunday and a lot of confessions.
Yeah.
And and just studying on the side. I mean, this is one of those things I also want to talk about at some point as we discussed today. It's sort of like the double-edged sword of technology. I mean, here we are getting to have this conversation, which we wouldn't get to have and probably wouldn't even know each other if it wasn't for
That's right. That's
the
right.
glories of the internet, and yet it has its own challenges that are out there. I mean, like what you had discussed. I'll call him his full name for his father, John Gribowitz, correct? But you just call
Father
him
John Gribowicz.
Gribowicz, and I've never met the man, but I know you call him Grib. So
Grib. Everybody calls him Grib. That's his nickname. It's just Grib, the Grib.
that's great. That's great.
Or some people just call him John, but most of us call him Gribby.
Which
Sometimes
is
Grib. Gribby. Yeah. He's a
getting
great
the
guy.
great nicknames is so important, and that's the thing. It's like this is sort of like the long-time listener, first-time caller sort of show. Like I feel like I've gotten to watch so many, and that's the other thing I.
Well, here you are.
Yeah, I mean,
No, I can't tell you how great. I mean, the blog has grown so much in the past year, and I'll say this to all my viewers. I used to be able to answer all the emails that I get personally, and I made a point to do so.
Sure.
And then, of course, people like you, I developed a relationship with and would call. And they would call me. But to all my viewers out there, I mean, trust me when I tell you, if you email me and I don't answer you for like a month or 3 weeks, please, it's no slight. I'm one person and I can't keep up anymore. It's just overwhelming.
Sure,
And part of that is great. It means people are reading the blog and responding to it. But part of it's also bad because I feel bad. When someone bothers to actually email me and write to me, sometimes very long emails, and I just don't have the time to respond. It really cuts at me because part of me absolutely hates technology and the anonymity of it and the impersonalism, which is why I do like to respond to people. But it just doesn't work. But anyway, that's your bio, and I'm happy that actually we've made acquaintance through the blog, and well, how many times we've maybe had 3 or 4 phone conversations.
Yeah, I think
so. And
so.
It was the last one where I said I need to have you on my show because, as with Father John and with Father Harrison Eyre of the Clerically Speaking podcast, I like to have priests on here, especially parish priests. That's why I loved your biography as you just described it. You are the quintessential parish priest. And so what I want to talk about today is something I've talked about with every priest that I know, both on this show and just, personally.
Sure.
What is the crisis? Is number one, is there a crisis of priestly morale today? And I think there is. And I'd be interested in knowing if you think there is. What is the source of it, and what are some of the symptoms of it? What are the cures for it? So this is the nature of today's conversation. So let's start with that first question. Is there a problem with priestly morale today among the ranks of the diocesan clergy?
Yeah, and it's hard to just say full-blown crisis. I mean, it feels like there's so many crises all the time, and maybe this is the wrong way to start this, but it's just like just all the horrible things that just happened in Texas and all, it's like all the shootings are back on our radar again.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's like, well, crisis, is it a new crisis? I mean, I was in grade school when the Columbine and Paducah, Kentucky things. So it's like, it's been ongoing. And so it's like, is it a new crisis? Well, no, but is there like an epidemic of a problem of the heart and the soul? Yes, absolutely. And is there a ongoing morale issue? Yeah. I mean, it is tough out there. Um, and, and some of the things that you've described over time about, just like Sunday morning in a parish, I think combating that crisis, a big part is sort of reigniting the excitement about Sunday morning. And I don't mean like gimmicky stuff.
Yeah.
I mean like so I'm the lone priest here, right? 1,000 families. It would be great to have another priest. I've been by myself for 4 years. So I had somebody with me for the first four, but like a lot of places, we're just stretched thin. So I'm here by myself. I have every Saturday night, we've got our 4:30 Mass, Sundays 8, 10:30, 12:30 Spanish. And then Saturday, and like tomorrow, morning Mass at 8, wedding Mass at 1, and then you go, got confessions in the morning. And so when you're going all the time. And I think the key, so to speak, to keep moving in the midst of that and sort of combating the difficulty you talked about on Sunday mornings, but also the morale issue, is recognizing like this is the heart of what I get to do. It's like Sunday is sort of a family reunion in the parish, and not constructing things to try to attract everybody, but to just keep pointing everything to Christ. And this was the thing I think we had talked about the last time we spoke briefly. Just one of the things I wanted to like throw in your conversation with Father Harrison from Clerically Speaking. I think our key role in the midst of all this, we have got to be rooted in prayer, and focused on Jesus Christ. Because I remember even when I entered seminary in 2004, the abuse crisis really hit the fan in 2002. I enter in 2004, and I've got stories about that too. But I feel like there was still kind of gosh, maybe someday I'll be a bishop. Like no one really articulates that, but it's that thought of, that could be me someday.
Why would you want that, for crying out loud?
Yeah,
it's insane.
I completely agree.
I just read somewhere, I don't mean to interrupt your narrative, but I just read someplace that one of the problems that the Vatican is facing with regard to episcopal appointments is how many priests turn it down.
Yeah, I believe it. Now, I have no personal experience with that whatsoever. However,
so you've never been offered and turned it down.
I have never been offered.
For the record, you've never been offered.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that is not said with all kinds of like humility. No, it's never happened. But I think there's been, like, even in the midst of a crisis of morale, one of the things I think is so good about this day and age is sort of like the double-edged sword the blessings involved in the internet. I think we've had a purification of clerical ambition. That like my ambition, as I could articulate as best, is I want to turn the parish I've been entrusted with, Sacred Heart Catholic Church in Salisbury, North Carolina, into, I used to just say a saint factory, but like a discipleship factory, like getting people on the road to loving Christ and wanting to be there on Sunday. And it's sort of, to try to combat the bourgeois Catholicism you talk about, or the beige Catholicism that Bishop Barron talks about. And like, this is challenging. It is hard. And I think a lot of the structures in the past that maybe boosted up morale a little bit, just sort of like the respect that naturally comes, in being a priest, or, maybe someday I could be living in this city and doing this job, like all that stuff. I mean, in a way, it's like, thanks be to God, it's kind of been purified away. And our whole focus, it's like, okay, if we're going to be out there, we're going to be living in the midst of all of this, like, what am I here for? What am I doing? Like, I'm here to help people through life and death situations. And I mean, and that's not even overstated. I mean, there are funerals all the time, and difficult things. And I mean, I just had a wedding for a family. I was kind of surprised. It was here at the parish, but there was supposed to be a visiting priest, and he got sick. And so I got to step in, but just a family that's had a tragic loss in the family, but I'm glad I got to be there for them. It's just, somebody's got to be there, to bring that love of Christ in the midst of things. And so it's like, okay, is there a morale problem? Yes, because it's hard to look to like leadership and be super inspired. But at the same time, I think in a way it's kind of good, because then we look to the tabernacle, to kind of keep us going.
Yeah. That's very interesting, because you're actually one of the first young priests, and I would say relatively speaking, you are a young priest.
which I appreciate. I
Yeah,
just turned
yeah,
40 at the beginning of the year, so I mean that is
yeah.
still young, and I appreciate that.
Well, consider what's the average age of a priest now?
It's 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 higher than 40, I think.
Is it 93, 94, something like that?
I'll put it
Uh,
this way: I don't think my retirement age is going to be 65. That's for sure.
oh, oh, actually, before I get to my question, I have a very dear priest friend, uh, old seminary classmate. He's around 70. I think he just turned 70, who desperately has wanted to retire since he was 65, but he can't because the retirement age is what, 75 or
I think at least at this point. I mean, I think most of the guys of we just don't really expect to retire. I mean, it's you're going to expect to wear your boots until the end. That's just kind of the way it is.
yeah, it's not a profession like other professions. But anyway, you're one of the few young priests that I have interviewed or just known personally in my individual life who doesn't characterize it as a crisis of morale. You say, yeah, there's a problem of morale, this XYZ, this thing, that thing, whatever. But I have met a lot of young priests, a lot of them, who have said there is a huge crisis in morale. So it's kind of refreshing. This is my point. I'm not here to criticize your view. It's
Oh,
kind
no,
of,
no, it's fine.
I was actually expecting you to say, yeah, there's a big crisis in morale, and here it is. But you're actually saying, no, there's not a crisis, not like a mass shooting in an elementary school. And that's a really interesting way of putting it because it does put things into perspective, right?
Yeah.
A crisis is when, 19 school children die.
Absolutely. And
you
they're on
know,
the ground. I mean, those poor people. It's interesting. I saw the headline about that in, if I don't know how you say it, is it Uvalde, the town where that was?
I don't know how you pronounce it. Uvalde is how I've been saying
Yeah,
it.
I think I dropped out the
I
D.
don't have a television, so I don't watch
Well, good for
news.
you, because that's
So,
not, they're just
yeah.
not helpful. But I saw the headline online, and the parish there's one Catholic church. It's also Sacred Heart. And I was like, I'm just going to pick up the phone and call them. And just because I read that out of the 21 people, like the 21 associated deaths with that, 12 of those funerals are at that parish. So you think about that
Yeah.
priest, and his name is Father Eddie Morales, is what
I
it's.
read that. I read
Yeah.
that.
And I mean, God bless the guy. I mean, no, I always say funerals are never easy, but some are easier than others. And obviously, he's got 12, none of which are easier than others. And and I guess they did like multiple on one day. I mean and I just called him just to say like, hey, from one Sacred Heart to another, praying for you. God bless you. I know that's not easy. And it was a lovely volunteer receptionist, and she's like, oh, thank you, Father. We appreciate the prayers from all over. And she said, and where did you say you're from? And I said, Sacred Heart in Salisbury, North Carolina. She goes, oh, Salisbury, like the steak. I'm like, yes, like it just made me. It's like even in the midst of insanity out there, it's like we've got to still be bearing light. And I don't mean to sound like Pollyanna. It's not weird optimism, but I think you even kind of said it with Bishop Barron in your interview with him recently. It's like, well, at the end of the day, we've got sanity on our side. It's sort of like we've got. It's like it's the line from Peter at the end of John 6, like, Lord, to whom else shall we go? You've got the words of everlasting life.
Yeah.
And so, am I less than impressed? Like anytime you do, I don't really watch TV at all either. I can't say I don't have one. I do have like a small one upstairs that occasionally I'll watch a movie like when I have a seminarian over or something. But am I less than impressed with a lot of things that we read about the wider church, and we'll just leave it at that? Yes, of course I am. It's like, for goodness sakes. But like I said, it's almost like a purification of clerical ambition, because at the end of the day, it's like, well, this is when our Lord has called us to be boots on the ground and show it's like, yeah, this is worth giving our life for still. And
all right,
it's hard.
I'm going to, okay, because this conversation is going in a different direction than I thought. So I'm going to trim my sails and tack into the wind here.
Please do.
And say, okay, this is fantastic, because it reminds me of a phone conversation I had about, oh God, I'm going to be confessional here now. It was about 20 or 25 years, maybe 20 years ago. A former seminary classmate of mine, who I won't mention a name, called me up out of the blue one evening to say, "Oh, Larry, he had been a priest for maybe since 1986. So, 20 years, whatever it was. I'm old. Okay, so he says to me, Larry, I just, want you to know, I've been thinking about you. We used to be roommates in the seminary and whatnot, and I'm just so burned out and I'm so tired. I needed to talk to somebody because my morale is so low. I feel like a sacrament machine, and nobody, the litany.
Oh yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah. So, and what I said to him was essentially, shut up, suck it up, Nancy.
Yeah.
You don't know what suffering is. And as I've written in my blog, I proceeded to tell him, my mother raised 5 kids, the last of which was gravely ill with a
Sure.
congenital heart defect. Stay up all night with her as she was vomiting up her medicines that had ripped up her stomach. She eventually died after heart surgery. My father was a fireman, would come home and puke into the bathtub from smoke he had ingested, and then help my mother with my sick sister, and so on. And I said to my friend, I said, that's suffering.
Yeah.
That's holiness. How dare you come in here and say, "Oh, I'm so tired from hearing confessions." How dare you? That's
Yeah.
what you were ordained to do. Well, sadly, like 3 years later, he left the priesthood. And I remember thinking,
Sure.
well, crap, maybe if I'd had an ounce of compassion and humanity, maybe if I wasn't such a human turd and just so intent on putting the poor man in his place, he would still be a
Yeah.
priest today. I mean, obviously, now in retrospect, he was in dire straits. I mean,
Sure.
he was calling up some dude he hadn't talked to in 20 years, but it was a former classmate in seminary, and he was reaching. And all I could say was, "Suck it up, Nancy." And then he
Sure.
left the priesthood. But but I tell that story because it does point out two related things. Number one, there is a problem with
Hmm.
loneliness and depression in the priesthood, and all of the things that my friend expressed are common attitudes among priests today.
Yeah.
On the other hand, there is a sense of everybody suffers.
Yeah.
Everybody has it tough. Married people have it tough.
Of course. Of
You know,
course.
so I love the way you start. I absolutely love the way you started this by saying, no, Uvalde is a crisis.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
that's a
Absolutely.
crisis. What we're undergoing is a problem, but
Hmm.
not a crisis.
No,
And
and this is
so
when
go
we
ahead.
this is what we've been called. Yeah, and I'll tell you too, just to kind of like tie it into one of my favorite blog posts that you had about the discalced laity. I mean, like, okay,
Yeah.
if we're gonna like live out this universal call to holiness, well then let's take it seriously. And yeah, and I agree. Like, don't get me wrong. Like okay, a guy calls me like that. I probably wouldn't start out quite as strongly as you did, you know. But at the same time, there are times when we do have to kind of say, you got to suck it up, Buttercup, because you've got to get to that level. Okay, why
Yeah.
was I ordained? Did you expect this to be easy? I mean, I've had some really good conversations with some priest brothers about, it's like when our Lord says, if you will be my disciple, you must deny yourself, take up your cross daily, and follow me. I mean, it sounds so romantic and lovely because we've heard it, but when you're actually doing it, yes, it is hard. But to completely take this to a completely different reference, like you have these wonderful people talking about Louis Bouillet, and
Yeah.
I'm going to reference A League of Their Own and Tom Hanks. But when
Yes.
when Gina
Yes.
Davis is going to leave and she says it just got too hard, and he goes, "It's the hard that makes it great," and on a certain level, it's like we get to participate in all of this, and for us priests too, as compared to the lay faithful, I mean, we've been given the gift of celibacy. Is it a challenge? Absolutely. But we've been given it so that we have a place to welcome in our Lord, to specifically be devoted to prayer. Like, I get to make a holy hour every morning. And then from that, I draw on that in everything I'm doing. Parents don't get to do that. Like, they don't get to leave their kids and come here for a holy hour every morning. Like, no, don't get me wrong. I mean, I've been going this morning since I got up at 4:30, and I'm gonna go and that's great. But I got to spend, an hour in front of the Blessed Sacrament this morning, and that, it propels you on. I mean, were my socks knocked off? No, it was a pretty common, quiet. Got to read the readings, and and today we're moving through the Sermon on the Mount. So you've heard it said, you should not commit adultery, but I tell you, whoever has,
Yeah.
I get to meditate on that. I get to spend time with it. I'm, meditating on Elijah. I get to do that every day. And I think, once again, it's like sort of back to the internet problem. You can use this as a tool, or it can also be a complete time sap that never actually helps you to do what you need to do. And I think I remember hearing you talk one time about how important praying the breviary, like out of the actual book, is. I mean, it's so true.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, every once in a while, I'll pray daytime prayer on my phone because I'm in the church, the book's over there.
Oh, I have to. We all have.
Of course. But I don't want that to be, it's like I don't want to eat every meal off a paper plate. It's fine when I have to, but like you need to like make sure that you're like treating, of course, there are obligations, but it's from the obligation that you draw the life. And so even if there's a bunch of prelates out there that aren't impressive and people who have done atrocious things, like I said, I entered seminary in 2004. We knew what was going on starting in 2002, right? But nonetheless, like, okay, yeah, don't be like that. Be someone in love with Christ. Like, you've got everything you need, so do it.
We knew what was publicly going on starting in 2002.
Yeah, I know.
But
then 18 was.
I mean, I can tell you. I mean, I entered minor seminary in 1978, and then went to theology at Mount St. Mary's in Emmitsburg, Maryland. I mean, full disclosure, I'm actually a laicized deacon. I think I told you that once.
Yeah. And
I was actually ordained a deacon for the Diocese of Arlington. Was 2 months away from priesthood when I said, "Niet, no, this is not for me," and got laicized. Nevertheless, my point is that so I was in seminary 78, 96 with 1 year off. And even then we knew. I mean, I would sit in we would sit with friends in rooms, and we would tick off the list of names of guys, and we would say, arrest. This is these are the guys that are going to get arrested someday.
Wow.
for sexual malfeasance, and that's the kind of sad thing. We're kind of switching to a new topic, but
sure.
That's the sad thing about the sexual abuse crisis, and why it makes me irate. Why I've been on. I mean, I went on the O'Reilly Factor several times talking about it. I was on CNN, and not to toot my own horn and make myself sound like some big expert like a Richard Sype or something. I'm not. The fact is, I was incensed by it.
Sure.
Because everybody knew. It didn't start in 2002.
Sure.
This is something that went back into the 70s and beyond. And if you were in clerical culture during that time, as I was, as a seminarian, you knew what was going on. You were hit on by others. You saw people getting hit on, and you saw priests engaged in these sorts of things, predatory behavior, and you knew something was going on, and you knew the doo-doo was going to hit the fan someday, and you could not understand why nobody in authority was doing anything about it at all.
Sure.
Not a thing. And I don't know why I'm all of a sudden raising this topic in the midst of our wonderful conversation about priesthood.
Yeah.
But it does pertain, I think, a little bit to priestly morale, in the sense that I think there has been a problem in the clerical subculture in the Catholic Church for many decades now, insofar as there has been a kind of fifth column of clerical quislings who have just used the priesthood for this, that, or the other, thing in their life, whether it's a sexual dalliance or upward mobility or whatever. And I'm just wondering, obviously you don't have to name names or anything, but you see this, you're not blind. Do you think it's gotten better today than it was, say, in my time back in the 70s, 80s? Or is it the same?
Well, okay. I'll put it this way. So, it's funny, like, talking about this, and I still kind of thinking about your conversation with your classmate from before too.
Yeah.
Part of me wants to be like, well, you got to understand too, like, I feel incredibly blessed and protected, right? Because I entered seminary in 2004. Last year, John Paul II's pontificate, the beginning of Benedict XVI. I feel like I was sort of in a golden age of seminary from 2004 to 2010. I mean, I was ordained during the year of the priests that Pope Benedict declared.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just it was like this special blessed moment. I didn't encounter things in the seminary like that. And and
Fortunate.
to be fair, like maybe I'm a naive kid with my head in the clouds, but it definitely was not an apparent obvious thing. Like we were really trying to be chaste guys. I mean, I went from, we'll just put it this way, a pretty normal college undergrad career. I was in a fraternity. I worked for Anheuser-Busch. Thanks be to God, my only period away from the church was, I think there was one weekend I stayed out too late on Saturday night and didn't make it to mass on Sunday. But I felt so guilty. I went to confession on Monday. I went to mass all week. So it's like that was my, like, that Sunday was like my period away from the church. I mean, I'm so blessed. I have my parents, you know, they're wonderful, faithful, practicing Catholics. I have great siblings. Like I'm very blessed and protected in that. But at the same time, it doesn't mean I don't notice, you know, the wider crap out there. And I think like everybody else, you know, even more so than what happened in 2002, 2018 kind of hit like a ton of bricks. Cause like I thought we were getting all this taken care of. And even more so than like cleaning up some of the horrible things you're talking about, like just that kind of a culture, finding out that it's been very specifically covered up and we've been lied to. That was a hard one to take, obviously. I mean, it was so difficult. And I remember actually, because that was like in August when that hit, about everything with Cardinal McCarrick and all of that, like former Cardinal McCarrick. So, and I just remember being down and depressed. And I think that was right after everything hit with the grand jury report in Pennsylvania and all of that. And I was just crushed, right? And we were going into the opening mass for the school year for just the teachers. Like the teachers had come back. We're going to be getting ready for the kids. So every year I have mass for the teachers before they start doing everything. And it was like one of those things where you have to will yourself on, right? And they were just so good. And getting to go over and to be with them, to be with those teachers. And our PTO, like we got like the best PTO in the world. They spoil us. Like I'm gonna reach across my desk because there's always something on my desk. Father, I don't, it's great. Like they make me things with my name on it all the time. And I remember there was like a coffee mug waiting for me that said something like, I never dreamed I'd grow up to be the world's greatest priest, but here I am living the dream. Now, I don't pretend to be the world's greatest priest, but why I bring all that up is it's like, okay, yeah, there's all that crap that's been going on for so long. There's people who have abused the priesthood up and down. There are people who have done atrocious things in Catholic schools, and yet our Catholic schools remain open. Wonderful people continue to devote their lives to making a whole lot less money than they could in other places to hand on the faith in our Catholic school. They keep coming to Mass on Sunday. Like, yes, there have been a lot of people who have betrayed them. A lot of priests who've done, a lot of bishops, a lot of cardinals. Like, it's horrible. But, like, I don't think any of us signed up for this because of any of them. And in some way, it's kind of like our Lord sort of purifying us that it's not, okay, it's this one guy. He's going to get us through. I mean, the only one guy, and this sounds totally disrespectful, but is Jesus Christ, you know? And so we've got to be out there and devoted to this. And does it need to be cleaned up? Yes. I had an appointment with a parishioner, I don't know, 6-7 months ago. And he wanted to meet with me because he just was in a real moral quandary, like was having a hard time supporting the church financially because of all the horrible things that have happened.
Yeah.
I understand. Like, I feel the same way. Like, I get it. Like, I don't want to just send off money, like personally or otherwise, you know, just because of all the, you know, and obviously financial is a piece of it. But if you can't, and in the midst of this, he said, and I thought this was so powerful and I've been reflecting on it ever since, can't people just live their vows? It's like, wow. You know, and I think that's what it boils down to. In the same way that we expect married people to live their vows, we expect parents to get up and take care of their children on whatever scale of sickness it might be. They got to do it, you know, and we're here to help them live the vows. I just had a wedding. I mean, I want them to live that out. We've given them the grace. It's like, now get out there and do it. It's like, come on, priests, like, let's do the same thing. And I think what really gets me too is when you get this sort of like excusing attitude of consenting adults. It's like, what the heck is that? Like, are we gonna have an excusing attitude of consenting adults when they're betraying their spouse? Like, no, That's insane. Like that does not, and I know wider society, whatever, but that's not what we're about. I mean, is it hard?
Yeah.
Yes. But I love Bishop Barron from a long time ago. I forget when he said this, but he went through this whole long thing about is the moral teaching of the Catholic Church, high focus, ideal, difficult, da, da, da. He's like, yeah, but that's why the mercy is just like endless. So as long as you're willing to ask for the mercy and the grace to keep getting up again, you
Yeah.
can live this out just like saints have for the last 2,000 years. And it's like, okay, now's our chance to do that. And we got to do it on the ground and do it every day.
And that's an important tension. It's
Yeah,
an extremely important
absolutely.
tension
Absolutely.
to not treat the church's teachings, the universal call to holiness, as some kind of unattainable ideal. And
Exactly.
however I fall on the graduated scale of attaining that ideal, that's God's will for me, and that's good enough. That's nonsense.
It
That
is.
that is anti-Christian BS.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there are many, many, many people in the highest levels of the church who think that way today.
Yeah.
And then say mercy is all about blessing wherever you are. And so that's why, absolutely right. Bishop Barron is absolutely correct. The tension is in here's the calling, and it's real, and it demands things from you. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not merely an ideal, it is a command. Live this way, go and live like this. But then there's the mercy, okay? Because you're going to fail. You're going to fail, and you're going to fall flat. We all are going to fall flat, but you can't identify the falling flat with God's will.
No, of course not.
Not at all. But there are those in the church who do and want to these days.
Yeah.
And like I
It's
said,
just
on
crazy.
the highest level of the church, if you can get my drift. So that's a problem. But I want to come back to something you said about people keep coming to mass.
Yeah.
Uh, there's a trope going around, meme, whatever you want to call it, among radical traditionalists. Let's call them that. That would say that Novus Ordo parishes, such as yours, are dying, and that the future of the church resides among traditionalist communities, traditional Latin Mass communities, because Novus Ordo parishes are dying. Is that true?
No. Like and God bless. I mean, I love the liturgy.
Yeah.
Full
Oh, yeah.
disclosure. I mean, feel free to, look us up. I mean, I'll put it this way. I've been celebrating the Mass ad orientem since March of 2020 when we went into COVID lockdown, and I was live streaming the Mass, and I was looking out at a big empty church. And our parish it's a beautiful church. We have a glorious high altar that came from a closed down church in Chicago, and at the top you've got this beautiful extended hands statue of the Sacred Heart. Below that, then we got a beautiful crucifix above the tabernacle. The tabernacle, it's just like this. The way one our seminarian here is a transitional deacon. He's going to be ordained a priest in 8 days. Very exciting. The way he put this, it's like you go from Thursday to Friday to Sunday. It's like you got Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and then there's the Sacred Heart. I mean, it's like we're striving towards heaven, and like we have a beautiful liturgy, and I like to say here we strive for reverent joy. Like it's different from everything else. Like it should be different when you come here than it is when you go to IHOP after mass, right? Like it's not. The music is going to be different. We shouldn't all sit around and congratulate each other for being here. It's like, I mean, yes, I'm glad you got here and got out of bed, but this is more than just a self-congratulatory session. This is how we're going to make it through another week. We're going to, receive our Lord in the Blessed Sacrament. I hope you can come more often. We have Mass every day. But it needs to be different than everything else. And so
Yes.
the thing I love about Ad Orientem is it's like I have the wind at my back. We're all in this together. And plus, like I was saying before, it's not one guy who's going to do this. I'm not performing. I'm praying. Now obviously I'm facing everyone when I'm preaching, and I almost feel like the Ad Orientem posture has helped with preaching too. So it's like I'm focused on Christ here, and then it's like, okay, I'm tying together the liturgy of the Word and the liturgy of the Eucharist and bringing it all together. And I guess all that to say, because it's like I feel like Pope Benedict has said a few times that what we have right now is a crisis of faith, right? And I
Yes.
think
Yes.
that is what has to be present. And that regardless of whether you're in a Novus Ordo parish, a Byzantine parish, or one that celebrates the traditional Latin Mass, fine, whatever. But all of them, at the heart of it all, has to recognize that this is the encounter between God and man. He continues to be with us, continues to be
Yes.
Emmanuel, and we've got to be devoted to that. And so I heard this one thing on, I think it was Pints with Aquinas. Someone had said, like, I think Matt Frag complained to a friend about, like, just, oh, the liturgy is so bad. And the friend said to him, well, you don't deserve a good liturgy, you deserve hell. So just be happy with what you're getting. And I thought, wow, that's pretty intense. And don't get me wrong, like I'm a priest. One of the great advantages of being a priest, I get to kind of direct what I'm going to do with the liturgy. Like I'm not going to go on. Oh, I think I lost you. Are you there, Larry?
I
Oh,
am
lost
now.
you for a second. Okay, good.
Well, hopefully, my friend Rachel Bach can edit all this out and add a little nice video at the front. So
That
that's
sounds
great.
good.
Sorry
That's
about
great.
that.
No, no, no. You're
Out
fine.
here on our Catholic worker farm out here in Harvey's Lake, Pennsylvania, the internet is indeed sketchy.
I understand. I
So
understand.
my apologies to my viewers for that. But anyway, so well, let's get down to brass tacks. I
Yeah,
mean,
please.
yes, I have no doubt that you have a beautiful liturgy because you're a reverent priest, and Ad Orientem is fantastic. But what are the demographics of your parish? In other words, this is just an interesting question to me. A person that I greatly admire, a scholar, Stephen Bullivant, has written a book called Mass Exodus, and it's about why Catholics are leaving the church in droves these days. And it really has very little to do with liturgy, really, sociologically speaking. And he's one of the few people that's done a sociological analysis.
Hmm.
It's a very complex question.
Sure.
As to why Catholics are leaving the church today. And liturgy is just one aspect of it and a very small aspect of it. It's got a lot more to do with the dominant culture drawing people away. So, from when I talk to priests from all over, and now you're from the South, so it might be different. Most of the priests I talk to are from the Northeast and out West and so on. They talk about how there is a definite decline in baptisms, marriages in the church, and so on, especially baptisms and marriages. Let's just focus on that. Is that true in your parish too? Have you seen a precipitous decline over the years you've been there in baptisms and marriages and mass attendance?
No,
Or
we've actually grown a little bit, which
well,
is
there you go.
great. Yeah. And I mean, and to be fair, I mean there's demographic help. I mean, I'm 45 minutes from Charlotte, North Carolina, which is booming. And I mean, and a lot of people who are coming here are Catholic, and we do have plenty of converts every year. And plus the Hispanic population. I mean, it's true. I mean, it skews younger. We have baptisms in Spanish once a month. We just kind of contain them that way. I mean, I had 7 2 weeks ago, and that's always growing. I mean, now granted, are we as big as it probably once was at a certain period? Probably not, but we're definitely not shrinking.
Good.
And I think we've come out of COVID better than we went into it. And I think the whole thing there, and now granted, once again, everybody has like different circumstances. We sit on a great big piece of property. We were able to have mass outside. Plus, I'm in North Carolina, not up north. So we just never really stopped. I had confessions outside the whole time. I like to say about our parish, we're like Chick-fil-A, and then we have confessions every day but Sunday. So it's like we're always up, so we keep them going. And I mean, and people come. And on a certain level, now, I'm in a spot in the country that's growing, and that helps. And we also don't have the lingering effects of cultural Catholicism that are kind of like in a death knell, right? I'm in Rowan County. We're the one Catholic church in the whole county. And so we're drawing from a lot of, smaller towns. Where I
Yeah.
grew up in Peoria, any farming town is going to have a Catholic church. We don't have that. I mean, it's just everybody kind of comes here. It's like some of my brother priests up north, they're like riding the circuit and they have 3 or 4 parishes. I got one, and it's so everybody comes to me. Now it has its own challenges, and I got a lot of sacraments, but at a certain point, like you were saying before, you got to remember, it's like, okay, you were ordained to celebrate the sacraments. Like, you have to find your joy in that. And there was an article I read, I think back around Thanksgiving time, and I'm sorry I don't have it in front of me. it was in Catholic World Report, which I know you're writing for now, which is great, and I appreciate those articles. But I think it was by Francis Mayer, and he had this really good point through the whole thing. He was saying something about how he's on a live stream, and he noted, like, he's just like staring at this person's face, like, gosh, why are they so upset? And then he realized it was himself. And I guess his wife said to him, are you okay? And he said, yeah. And she said, would you please tell your face? Like, and he goes through this whole thing about needing to kind of still have joy in the midst of the world. And I think he used to work in the Archdiocese of Denver. And he talked about this priest that got sent to an inner city parish. And everybody knew it was going to close down, but nobody bothered to tell him. I love that. And he like went in there and he was excited and happy and good. And apparently now the place is booming. You know? And it's just, I just thought that was such a good analogy. I'm sorry I don't have the title of the article, but it was just like, and that's the thing. Like, we've been through a lot. I've been here for 8 years. There have been ups and downs. There have been challenges. A brother priest of mine got interviewed about the priesthood not too long ago, and he goes, I don't think they like my answer. I just said the priesthood, it's the cross. I was like, wow. You know, and it's true, but so are all of our vocations. You know, and if you go in there and don't live as though, you know, it's like you don't play to lose, you know, you play to win. It has an effect, and it may take a while to get going. And like I said, I've got demographic advantages, and there's good things. But you know that there are places up north that when you get excited and rooted in the gospel, not in like gimmicks. I remember okay, this is really bad, but I was very disgusted at one point. I went on a pilgrimage to Fatima, which I love. And we went up into Spain and went to Compostela, and we're a few places in Spain. And whatever diocese we were traveling through, it wasn't at Compostela. It was like they had this like big banner outside the church, like trying to, you know, get people excited about the faith. And who did they choose as the spokespeople? R2D2 and C3PO. It's like you're going to the stupid robots from Star Wars? Like, come on. And I think when we try to, you know, I think was it Fulton Sheen who said, like, there's a problem when we try to attract vocations like you're selling toothpaste. Like, that's not good. Like, it's not accurate.
Don't you think that's a symptom of stupidity?
Yeah.
And by stupidity, I mean priests and other lay leaders in a parish that simply don't read theology, don't read anything of any literature. In other words, that's to use R2D2 and C3PO. Okay, fine. You know, it's not nefarious. It's not a sign of an evil mind. What it is a sign of a barbarian.
Yeah.
It's a sign of someone so superficial, culturally and intellectually speaking, that they think that this is an actual way to attract people.
Yeah.
And the stupidity of that is just beggars the imagination.
Yeah.
Because it's also a symbol of the fact. I mean, what year was this?
It wasn't that long ago. I think 2018.
Okay, so it's a symbol.
4 years ago.
Is it not a symbol of the fact that the church always seems to be 25 years behind the times? I mean, I know Star Wars is still a franchise, but you know,
and of course,
C3PO and you know R2D2 were from 1976 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I mean, 77 when the first Star Wars came out or whatever. You know, there's just insane.
So many better people to go to than George Lucas. It's like, go to the saint, like, for goodness.
Teresa of Avila,
exactly. Like, you know, you're right there. Go to St. James. Like, just put his letter up on the wall. I don't care. Like, do something. But, and you know, don't get me wrong. Like, I'll make some references in homilies. Like, I feel like, you know, and you have to, like, especially with the kids at the school mass. I mean, I probably, the Disney movie I quote the most is Aladdin, because I always quote that moment when he reaches out to Jasmine and says, "Do you trust me?" And she says, "Yes." And it's like, that feels like the spiritual life. It's like every day, like, "Do you trust me?" You're like, yeah, and then you go. But I'm not going to make that our ad campaign to try to reattract fallen away Catholics.
My favorite Disney movie of all time is 101 Dalmatians. So I would put Cruella de Vil out there on the front of my church and say, "We're Catholics, go away." My priest, I have a priest friend. He says he wants to put that on his marquee outside his room. We're Catholics, go away.
Go away.
And
Yeah, it would
that's
be
not
like
true, of course.
yeah,
but
it's
but
the reverse psychology. It would actually get people in. It's like, remember the Fresca?
We don't need
campaign?
you.
It's not for you.
Yeah. Well, my home state of Nebraska. It's the state the tourism motto now for my home state is Nebraska. It's not for everyone, and how true that is.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay. So let's change course a bit. I've also blogged on mandatory clerical celibacy, and that's actually something you and I have never talked about on the phone. And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I am actually on the fence. I'll be honest. If you've read my blog on that, I go to an ordinary parish. My pastor, Father Eric Bergman, has 10 children, and I adore his children. My wife adores his children. The whole parish adores his children. And I blogged about the death of his unborn child who had trisomy and how that brought the whole parish together. And, I've always been a huge supporter, even though I quit the seminary, in diaconate in order to get married. I've always been a huge supporter of the discipline of mandatory celibacy. I think it is an important eschatological sign in the church. But I have to admit, my experience here in the ordinariate has deeply moved me. Father Bergman is actually the best pastor I've ever had in my entire life. And I have to believe that to us, and this is no slight on you or any other celibate priest, I have to believe that one of the reasons why Father Bergman is the best pastor I've ever had is because he's married. And that's not to say that I haven't had other good pastors who were celibate, and maybe some of them were actually better than Father Bergman, but he's the proximate one, and so he seems the best. All right, so, but still, what are your thoughts on this? I'm all over the map on this these days. I'm open to any and every and all ideas on this. So what are your thoughts, Father?
No, and I appreciate the question, and I really appreciated the blog post too, because I think you titled it as like a reflection. It wasn't anything. It was
no.
And I really appreciate that.
Who the hell am I? I don't know.
And it's good. And in all honesty, I mean, I appreciated the opportunity to sort of like just explore it myself, and think like, okay, what about all this? And because, and obviously, we live in the age of cancel culture and, you just shut down the opposite. No, I mean, it's a good exercise to enter into this and, okay, I've done this. I have made that promise. I made it a diaconate ordination 13 years ago and have been living it faithfully all this time by the grace of God. And if I were to say it's all been easy, that would be a complete and utter lie. I mean, it isn't.
Yeah. Hey, but not to interrupt, but marriage isn't easy either. I tell you, boy. Of course.
And that's the thing too. Is like you talk about a crisis in the priesthood. Like I don't think the answer then is we'll just give them another vocation. Like no, I don't think that's going to do it either. I think it's it goes down to an issue of the heart and being committed. And I think, and this is why, and in all honesty, taking that reflection and thinking about it and going, and it's really been good food for thought and prayer. I do think that it is necessary, and I think that celibacy in the parish has a really important role to play, and that there is someone like a living person who is there, who has said like, yes, this, I honor and appreciate and adore marriage. I am grateful for the wonderful examples of marriage I have in my life. Wednesday would have been the 83rd wedding anniversary of my maternal grandparents and the 65th anniversary of my paternal grandparents. So it's like they both have the same wedding anniversary, which is beautiful. And then my parents are wonderful. My siblings are wonderful. And like all this goodness, I love marriage. But I think to have someone in the parish who, has opened up this space of like, okay, this is where Christ has to fill me. Like I need to be dedicated to him. And I'll tell you a story. I mean, just to kind of give like a personal story. So, we talk about the abuse crisis, all that kind of stuff, right? So the first thing I got to study when I entered seminary, it wasn't like, okay, we're going to give you a course on the Gospels right out of the gate. The very first thing we did, protecting God's children and the Virtus program and all of that. And, okay, I get it. But it really messed with my mind because it was like part of that program was like, okay, here's some horrible people who have done horrible things. They're going to tell you about it. Like, what? Like, I didn't learn how to not be a bank robber by listening to bank robbers. Like, it threw me for a loop, right? And so, like, early on, it was almost like this instilled fear of children. And so, but I knew it's like, okay, but we still need to be a part of their lives. I'm not going to go looking for hugs. You just don't. But what my answer was, and it always has been, I high five them. I give high fives because you can't misinterpret a high five. Like you're not going to have issues, but it's still like, physical. And I can do the moving the hand thing. It's international. I don't care if the kids speak Spanish or English. They all know the high five, right? So I go out there at the end of every school day, say goodbye to them, high five them, help them get in the car. I'm out there with the teachers. I love it. It's one of my favorite parts of the day. Well, for whatever reason, this past, I want to say it was early September. It was a Friday afternoon. I'm seeing them all go. I'm high fiving them. I don't know what the heck happened, but it hit me like a brick between the eyes. It was like, these aren't your kids. Like it just, like this just like tidal wave of awareness, right? And they're all leaving and you're by yourself for the weekend. And it just hit me. And I remember at the time, it's like, okay, like all I want to do is like just go home and have a drink, right? Like, I mean, the easiest thing is like go crawl in a bottle. Now, I do enjoy a good drink, yes. And I'm in my office, so I don't have one with me.
Yeah.
But that's what I wanted to do. But thanks be to God, I've been a priest long enough. I just went into the church. And I was just in there for like 2 hours. And it was like, what do you want from what do you want from me in all this? Yeah. And it was just a difficult moment. But I'll tell you, it was like in that moment, it's like, okay, I want you to enter deeper into prayer. Because it sort of occurred to me in the midst of that I had been like, making the morning holy hour. I've always been faithful to the office. I promised to do it. I do it. But like that time for the Blessed Sacrament every day, it's like, it's all taken up. It's like praying in the office, reading the readings for the Mass, getting the homily ready. It was like boom, boom, boom. It's all efficient. And it was like, no, like you need to make sacrifice. Get up earlier, like pray the office at home, drink coffee, then come and just spend some time with me. And it was like I needed that to go deeper. And it's sort of like since then now. I'm not going to lie and say, oh, it's been easy ever since. It's not. It's still hard. I still get what we like to call the ache, and like, I would love to be married. I would love to have kids. I mean, I have and it is funny, you hit 40, it's a little bit different than it was when I was 22. But, there are those longings, but at the same time, it's like I get to be with Christ every morning, and then who the heck knows what's coming the rest of the day, and take that out there and not be thinking during that, oh no, like I'm not getting back for my son's softball game. Now, but it just, now don't get me wrong, it's not just the practical. I know the priests who have families can do it. I get that it's possible, and I really appreciated your conversation with Deacon James Keating and Monsignor Heinz.
Yeah,
where Deacon Keating said it's not like grits. It's not just an add-on, and I think he's right. And that's why I think, especially in the Roman Church, it's an exception to have a married priest, not the rule.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I can see that I can see how a guy can make it work, but I have definitely come to appreciate the great value of celibacy. And I say that with full disclosure. I remember one of our formators in seminary quoted a sister that he knew when he was a seminarian. And he said, the sister said to him, "Gentlemen, don't let them put you on a pedestal. They can all see up your skirt." That's pretty good. So I'm not saying like I'm the bastion of living clear. No, I mean, I'm a fallen guy, right? I hope I can be faithful to the very end, and I got nothing on my conscience. But it's just like marriage, to stay faithful, it's a daily work commitment, and you just got to stay at it.
You said something earlier about, I want to be married. I would say this: that's the surest sign that you probably are called to celibacy, in a sense, that a priest who embraces celibacy vocationally must also be capable of embracing marriage and fatherhood biologically, vocationally. Because unless you have the capacity to do that, you do not have the capacity to be a spiritual father to your parish.
Sure.
So it's actually, I think, a good thing that so many parish priests desire to be married, or not desire, but would be perfectly comfortable with being a married man and having children, and have certain pangs in their heart, like you said, when you see the school kids go away and you say, those are not my kids.
Yeah.
That breaks my heart actually. Because as a father myself, I know how wonderful children are. I only have one
Sure.
child, but still, this is why I'm on the fence with regard to celibacy, because when it is lived well, it is the greatest sacrifice that the church can ask of anyone. To
Sure.
take a man who would be a wonderful regular father and to make him a spiritual father. That when it works so well. It's powerful, it's beautiful, it's magnificent, and so on. But the thing is, when it doesn't work,
Yeah.
so my question would be, how many priests are there out there who really are called vocationally to celibacy? And how many priests are there out there who just sort of deal with celibacy as a hoop the church makes me jump through in order to be a priest, and sort of just white knuckle their way through the whole celibate thing?
It's a good question. I mean, and it's hard because I don't know. I mean, I was very encouraged when you had that interview with Monsignor Heinz and Deacon
Yeah,
Keating, because they were so impressive, the seminarians. And I'll say too, I'm more and more impressed with our seminarians as well.
that's
Uh,
good. That is
and
so encouraging.
it's phenomenal. And I think it's like the more I'll go back to this. So, so entering seminary back in 2004, everything is like it's hitting the news, right? And you think to yourself, okay, I want to do this, and I want to do this well. And I'll tell you a story too. This was really helpful, and it's another sort of like suck it up, buttercup moment. When I was I think I was first theology, so I'm 3 years in, and there was a priest back home that I had looked up to, like like brilliant guy, energetic kind of guy. You look up to, like, I want to be that priest when I grow up. Well, he ended up like he had an affair, and it just crushed me. It's like, this is the guy I'm looking up to, and all this, and it
Yeah.
just, and the way I felt, I was really afraid of, like, what if that happens to me, and I make other people feel the same way, and like I never want that to happen. I remember I'm going on and just like pouring out this whole sob story to my spiritual director, like, I don't know if I can handle
Yeah.
that. What if this happens to me? And he goes, well, don't let it happen. Well,
Wow.
thanks. Like,
That's
like one of those
great.
things, like,
Yeah.
like popping the balloon. And to be fair, just like in marriage, I would say it's at least extremely rare that someone's just walking down the street and they just fall into adultery, right? Like there's a process, right? There's little things that happen on the way. It's the same thing with us. Like, you've got to reach out and know what your support structure is. First and foremost, prayer. And it's funny because I remember like hearing those little like common bits of wisdom in seminary. It's like, yeah, thank you. Like, even the ones like, okay, you got to pray every day, absolutely, thank you. But then you really find out how true that is. My other favorite one was love the people, which used to drive me nuts. Like, why do you think I'm here? But it's like it's support. The more that you do have the appropriate kind of support, right? I mean, like I said, I'm blessed with an awesome family. I got some amazing brother priests. I have brother priests in other places I can call. I have friends from college. I can, and you got to build those up.
Yeah.
And like you're saying before too, it's like, okay, I'm not going to use R2D2 and C3PO. Why? Because I get to like listen to your podcasts and hear wonderful things about von Balthasar. I wouldn't know. I mean, I don't have time to sit down and read it all, but I can listen to your conversations with other people. And I'll tell you, like, I love the St. Paul Center for Biblical Theology with Scott Hahn, Dr. John
Oh,
Burke.
they're wonderful.
They have done such amazing work that, and I mean, even in just the 12 years I've been a priest, they have made scriptural study so accessible for us.
Yes.
that I can. So Dr. Bergsman put out this commentary called The Word of the Lord. It's a commentary on all the readings for every Sunday. And it's not, and this reminds me of a Deacon Keating line. He said to us in seminary, because he was at the Josephinum for a while when I was there, we overlapped. And he goes, did you give up a wife and kids so that you could just use homily helps? Gross. Like, it was just, I remember that, like, yeah, I mean, with these guys, like, they help us to.
How awesome is Jim Keating?
He's so good. I'm so sad I didn't get more of him at the Joseph. I think he left to go to Creighton, I think.
Creighton, now he's at Kenrick Seminary in St. Louis. He's just an amazing, amazing guy. And a big shout out to Jim. It seems like every video I make, I do a shout out to Jim Keating.
which is fantastic.
But that is so true. Anyway, I lost my train of thought. What were you talking about?
Let's see. Oh, I was talking about the Dr. John Bergsma, Dr. Scott
Oh,
Hahn.
Bergsma and Brad Petrick came out too. I saw with like a Catholic study Bible.
Yeah, and the introduction to the Old Testament.
The introduction to the Old Testament, which looks just magnificent.
It is.
And what I would say is this. Now we're not talking about priesthood anymore, but people are critical of the St. Paul's Center, just as everybody's critical of like Word on Fire. And it's not conservative enough. It's not liberal enough. It's not this. It's not that. All they are making the faith accessible to just common, average, everyday people, but not in a dumbed down kind of way, but in a deep spiritual kind of way. And this is what is sorely needed in the church today. And why are we so quick to criticize groups like this that are helping so many people?
Yeah. And I'll tell you, they do an amazing priest retreat every year. I'm going to be going in July up in West Virginia. I think it's grown so much that now they do 3 of them in different parts of the country. It's amazing. I mean,
I've just been invited to give a paper at Ave Maria University down in Florida, which at a conference that's being sponsored by the St. Paul, by the St. Paul Center. It's on the Eucharist and so forth. It's just amazing the good work that these various apostolic sort of ministries are doing.
Absolutely.
And it just pains me in my soul when I see these groups from what's going on in Steubenville to Word on Fire and other sorts of things. Sure. All they ever get is criticism from people.
Yeah.
And it's because, you're not on my particular theological hobby horse. And so I'm going to bring you down. I'm going to criticize you. Nobody's beyond. Scott Hahn isn't beyond criticism.
Sure, of course.
Bergsma is not beyond criticism. Bishop Barron is not beyond criticism. Not at all.
No,
people make mistakes. But look at the fruit of what these groups have produced.
Absolutely.
And they are helping lay people across this country by the millions. And it's exactly the kind of thing that we need more of. Hey, look, we're over an hour.
It flew by, which I guess
it just
kind of
flew by. But I do have one more question I want to ask you before we sign off, and that is, I've been writing a lot lately about this whole synodal way thing. Is your parish involved in the whole synodal thing?
So it's funny you mentioned that. Tomorrow is the closing session at the diocese. And as soon as I'm done with my wedding at 1, I need to get down there for the closing mass at 3:30 because I'm the vicar forain for this vicariate. And what we did, we opened it up for like some internet discussions. Some people jumped on, most weren't super concerned.
Yeah.
The way I look at it, it's like, okay, communion, participation, mission, all these sort of things. Yeah, they're all good, but it's sort of like, it's almost like circle back to what you were saying before about your blog and wanting to respond to people. It's wonderful. And I think sometimes it's like we get so big, but we want to retain the small time. Like this small time sounds bad. Like you want to retain like the individual accompaniment.
When I first started my blog, I had like 30 subscribers and I could talk to all of them. And now it's like,
yeah, exactly.
It's like, what? Wait a minute.
Absolutely. And this is the thing. It's like, okay, there comes a point where you're not able to just talk to everybody. And I think in some ways, like it feels to me like the flawed aspect of this amongst many, I won't go into a lot, but it's like, of course we should be talking to each other. We should be walking together, all these things, but you can't top down that from Rome to Salisbury, North Carolina. It's like you got to get to know the people, but once again, it's like the love the people. Yeah, like that's what we're here for. First, loving Christ. Simon, son of John, do you love me? Yes, Lord, you know I love you. Feed my sheep. It's like it's just it's what should be apparent, but then I don't know. There's all sorts of things we talk about.
Oh God,
you have, and you've written some.
And one of my big problems is that these surveys and questionnaires, and it's utterly. They need to talk to people who know how to do polling data, who know how to do these kinds of research sorts of things, because right now it's utterly unscientific, and random, and based on sort of self-selecting people that are responding to these things. So you're going to get people, activists on the left or the right,
I know.
or that kind of Catholic, as I said in one blog, that would show up to anything the pastor asked them
Sure,
to do.
sure.
Whether it's mosquito control or in the grotto, they'll show up for that. But the great 80% of the others,
Yeah, they're not worried about it.
yeah,
Like what do they
yeah,
want? They want the church to be Catholic. They want the sacraments on offer, and they
yeah.
want to keep living their lives. And what I want to strive to do as a pastor is inject the universal call to holiness into that. And I think
Yes.
probably one of my hardest things in the midst of the synod. And it's funny because so I have what's called the director of operations. He's like my right hand man, wonderful guy, a little bit younger than I am. Went to Belmont Abbey College here in the diocese.
Wow. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
that's in your diocese.
it
That's
is.
great.
It is. It's one. Yeah, they're the one. They're on the back of First Things all the time.
Yeah.
Abbot Placid is amazing there at the Abbey. But Michael Becker is his name. Is my director of operations. Great guy, degree in theology, and yet he just got an MBA. And it's like we're like the business aspect of the parish is all geared towards evangelization. And we do videos every once in a while. We do a catechism series. We did one on the synod, and it was funny because I didn't know what questions he was going to ask me, what we were going to discuss. He brought up the font in the logo for the synod. And he goes, "What do you think of this?" And it was such a good question because if you look at it, and he said he took the font out and sent it to one of our seminarians and said, just out of curiosity, what do you think this says? Just to look at the font, not the words.
Oh,
And he goes,
man.
the font says, second grade was a good year. And I thought it was such a good point because it looks like it's drawn in crayon.
Oh, man.
And it sort
Second
of goes
grade is a
back
good
to,
year.
it's like, folks, like,
Yeah.
what we're doing, as I said before, we're dealing with life
Yeah.
and death, with the
Yeah.
fact that Jesus Christ is risen from the dead. Let's lead with that. Like, I want to know how that affects your life, of course, but we don't need a global listening session to make that happen.
Yeah, a friend of mine said when they saw the logo, it's like, "Hey, chap, what that screams out to me is, hey, 1975 called. They want their crayons back."
I know, I know. And that's the tough thing,
Yeah.
do you remember a couple years back there was like a Met Gala or something, and like they got to take stuff from the church, and it was like they let
Yeah.
them use all the fancy, like the
Yeah, I
beautiful
saw.
stuff. Like,
Yeah,
what are we doing? Like,
it was Vatican stuff.
it was crazy, and it's like, why do we
Yeah.
like loan out our best stuff to those who are going to mock us, and then when it comes to putting our message forward, we do something like that? And like I said, communion, participation, mission, of course, believe in them all. I'm living it every day, but I live them by, giving, like offering the sacraments, living out my priesthood. People in the parish live it by living out their vocation, being faithful to their vows. It just, that's where it gets a little bit difficult. And I know you've talked in the past about
Oh, I have.
things that kind of get, yeah. Anyway, we'll see what happens.
Okay, so I put my glasses on to check my meter here. So sorry, folks. We've been talking for an hour and 15 minutes. It feels like we've been talking for 15 minutes.
I know it went quick.
I love you, man. You are so great. You are the greatest priest ever. I love talking to you. We have to do this again.
Absolutely.
We got to have part 2 of this because I have about 18 other questions I want to ask you. And I would ask my viewers if they're in the sort of Salisbury, North Carolina area to check out Father John Eckert's parish. Do you have any last thoughts, Father?
I've really enjoyed this too. And I think at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, crisis difficulties, but at the same time, when has that not been the case? And, the fact is, it's like the Eucharist is still there at the heart of the church. Christ is still present. And so even if we try to screw it up, he's still going to be there. And so we just have to keep being faithful. And this is one of those things that's helpful. I think sometimes when I'm not sure about what's going on out there, I just think local. And it's like, we're going to take care of Sacred Heart and pray for everybody else and hope it all works out. Just live the vocation while be faithful to your vows.
That's fantastic. And thank you again for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me. This has
been great. And I love the fact that, I only know you because we started a phone conversation, and I guess in one sense, this is a sign that technology is sometimes a good thing.
Absolutely.
That it brings people together. In fact, for my viewers know, this is the first time I've actually seen Father John Eckert's face, and it's great. better looking than I am. I'm old and ugly and bald and fat and about dead. So, but
No, I'll catch up. It'll be
yeah,
fun.
yeah. Oh, well, yeah. We'll all be dead
Yeah, of
someday.
course,
There's
of
no doubt
course.
about it. Yeah, I look in the mirror and I say, "Where in the hell did this old man come from?" You know. But anyway, hey, thanks guys for watching, and thank you, Father John Eckert. We will definitely have you on again. So thank you.
I will absolutely. I'll look forward to that. That'll be great. Thank you.